Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Aditi, and I have Shannon here with me today. We're so excited to have you joining us in this class, which is called Psychedelics 101. Shannon and I are both psychedelic guides. We've combined worked with over 500 clients in preparing and integrating their journeys. So super excited to bring this information to you all. I know there's been an increasing interest on this topic. So we definitely wanted to bring more information to people who are interested about it, especially because there's so much buzz around it. There's so much information that you may not know how to kind of sift through it. So we want to be able to be your guide today and help you navigate this space. So as I mentioned, today's class, we're going to be talking about what psychedelics are, how they can help you, and safety tips for your journey. So let's start with what psychedelics are in general. Like, what is a definition of psychedelics? So typically, the definition is it's a medicine that creates an altered state of consciousness. Now, this can be compared to something that you might experience in a meditation. Some people experience in a near-death experience, for example. And when they're in that state. It's also been called mind manifesting. It's been called visible soul, and also revealing or allowing a connection to the divine within. I think that's one of my favorite translations and definitions. And essentially, it's medicine that reveals unused potential of the human mind, which is probably the most exciting and most important part about it. So I have this fun visual here for you where it shows what your brain potentially looks like with psychedelics. So if you look at this image here, on the left would be what your normal brain would look like. And then on the right is what your brain would look like with psilocybin. So me and Shannon were just talking about this picture before we got on here. We're like, that is a crazy picture, but that is really how the medicine works. It literally lights up your brain. It connects different parts of it. It actually quiets the part of your mind that you think with on a day-to-day basis. So the part of your brain that you think with on a day-to-day basis is the default mode network. So essentially, that part of your brain dims down, it quiets down. So probably the daily chatter that you have in your head, it quiets down with the psychedelic medicine, and you're able to tap into your subconscious mind. It creates neuroplasticity in your brain. And what that means essentially is your brain becomes more mushy and more open and vulnerable to new ideas, new thinking patterns. And that's how you end up creating potentially new belief systems. We've all grown up with different belief systems from when we were very young. And they tend to keep us kind of steady in a certain track of mind, certain way of being, certain personality, whatever that might be. And we might find that some of those things are maybe not working for us anymore as we're getting older, but it's so hard to change. So the medicine really allows you, it creates that space. It creates an opening in your brain, in your mind, and ultimately in your life. People have compare this experience to being similar to one of the most significant experiences of their entire life. Compared to, for example, giving birth or a childbirth or losing a loved one. So those are two kind of very significant events that you may experience in your life, and people have compared psychedelics to that. And when I heard that, I was just like, wow, that's insane. So just to give you kind of an idea of how meaningful and impactful these experiences can be for any individual. So forms that you can take psychedelics, they can be smoked, they can be inhaled, they can be eaten, they can be brewed into tea, as just a few examples. So uses of psychedelics, traditional medicine and traditional religion have used it for physical healing, mental healing. Now you're hearing a lot about psychedelic therapy, where it's being used to treat mental disorders. It's also used for creativity, stepping into new parts of your brain, releasing trauma, working with PTSD, anxiety. The list goes on, and there are so many more trials and studies that are going on, revealing more things that psychedelics can be used for and can be helpful for you in your life. Indigenous groups have used it traditionally for many, many years, way before it was really introduced to Western society, for religious ceremonies, to create heightened spiritual states and really being able to connect with the divine. I actually have this necklace here, which I'll show closer when I'm not showing the screen, but this is an ayahuasca bark. So this is actually the tree of the ayahuasca plant, which is one of the psychedelics. And so this picture actually shows just a depiction of it getting made and getting brewed with different plants. It gets made into a drink. So super, super cool. So research has shown that psychedelics are safe and they're not commonly addictive. So I know one of the common questions that come up a lot, am I going to get addicted? With psychedelics, they are not commonly addictive. So that's not something that you have to worry about. And like I mentioned earlier, it has a lot of therapeutic effects to treat depression, anxiety, alcohol, nicotine addictions. But I also want to say it's not only used for mental disorders. That's just what has been coming up a lot lately. But people use it in general to just help cleanse themselves, to grieve when they're grieving through something, or sometimes people come even after a heartbreak, just to kind of move through certain times in their life where they feel like they could use a little bit of help. All right, now I'm going to pass it over to Shannon for the next part. Oh, did I freeze? Shannon, was I able to pass it over to you? Okay, cool. Go for it.
Yeah, sorry, just froze for a quick sec. I'll take over now. So, hi guys, I'm Shanan. I'm Australian. That's the accent that you can hear. I'm trained as an art therapist, but now I live in Tulum, where I facilitate integration for people who've had psychedelic experiences. And so part of the work that I do with people is helping them to figure out if this medicine is right for them. So, let's say you've done your homework, you understand a little bit more about how psychedelics work, what they might be able to do for you. The next question to ask really is this the right medicine for me? And is this the right time for me to be taking medicine? Some of my clients, they come to psychedelics because they've tried all of the traditional pathways. They've done all the talk therapy. They've taken all of those routes, and they've just found that there is a cap on how far talk therapy will take them. And they're looking to step into something that is a little bit more immersive, a little bit more experiential, and sometimes even a little bit more spiritual, creating that deeper connection to themselves and finding that sense of belonging. Other clients I have, they're motivated by curiosity or just a preference in general, for taking holistic and alternative medicines. A lot of them have anxiety and depression, and they just don't want to take traditional medication because they want to avoid potential side effects there. So they'll look to psychedelic medicines as an alternative. Whatever your motivation for taking the medicine is, it's definitely worth spending that time getting really clear on what your goal is for taking the medicine and what is your why, what is your motivation. That's the best way to set yourself up to win with the psychedelic medicines, because it's empowering you to participate in your healing journey. A common misunderstanding with psychedelics is that the medicine is going to make everything okay. It's kind of in line with, has anybody ever tried to set a New Year's Eve resolution before? January 1, I'm going to wake up and be a completely new person. I'm never going to eat junk food again. I'm never going to drink again. I'm going to exercise every single day. All of these habits that I've had potentially for decades are just going to stop. And it's going to be really easy for me to just move into this new space and into this new life. That kind of magical thinking sometimes carries over into psychedelics, that we're going to have this really immersive, mystical experience, and then we're going to be sparkly and clean and shiny, and everything is going to be really easy after that forever. And, I can tell you from personal and professional experience that they are hugely transformative, and there is so much goodness that you can get from them, but it doesn't sort of begin and end with that ceremony. the most sustainable solution for taking plant medicines is know why you're going in there, so that you can take consistent action before, during, and after the experience. Very similar to New Year's Eve. If you start in December with your goals, January 1 is going to be a lot easier for you, to start making those changes. The next one that I wanted to get into, the next point about, is this the right time for me? And is this the right medicine, touches on harm reduction. So I'm just going to bring up a little slide for you guys to have a look at. Bear with me. I admittedly am not the most tech savvy person. Okay, there we go. Okay, beautiful. So looking at harm reduction, is this the right time for me to be taking medicine? The answer to that question is, can you sufficiently regulate your nervous system? When you have a psychedelic medicine, it's going to open you right up. It's kind of like shaking a snow globe, but internally. And that's beautiful. That's the real power of the medicine. But it's also the reason why you want to be able to regulate your nervous system before going into the medicine, to ensure that when you come out the other side, you'll be able to put yourself back together again. And so what I mean by regulate your nervous system is, are you fairly grounded throughout the day? And when you're not grounded, when you become stressed out, if you go into the future, worrying about anxiety, do you have the ability to pull yourself back? Are you really, really easily triggered? Is your all the time? When you are overwhelmed by emotions, do you have the ability to take a breath, calm yourself down, or are you kind of just in it for the ride until the emotion passes? If you're in it for the ride until the emotion passes, this is probably not the best time for you to be taking the medicine. You're going to really struggle on the other side to put yourself back together again after the medicine has opened you right up. It doesn't mean necessarily that it's not the right medicine for you at all, or that psychedelics are not the pathway for you. It just means that there might be a few steps you need to take before you're ready for the ceremony. It's really, really important. If you're taking any antidepressant or any anti-anxiety medications, it's not the right time for you to be taking the medicine. They don't interact with plant medicines really well. And I recommend that you always, always speak to a doctor, speak to your psychiatrist or your healthcare professional to safely taper off the medicine, any medication you're taking before going into a ceremony. I do not advise anybody to go cold turkey. I've seen that happen and it never ends well. The withdrawal symptoms and negative effects you can experience from stopping a medication can be so severe that the psychedelic medicine may exacerbate those things. So always, be really kind, be really compassionate and patient with yourself, and give yourself that space to work with a professional to, come off any medication that you're taking. If you are taking any psychotic medication, if you have schizophrenia, this isn't the right pathway for you, unfortunately, but there are other things that you can try that can be really healing and transformative as well. If you're experiencing suicidal ideation, so if you're at a strong risk for suicide in this moment, again, coming back to the idea of being able to put ourselves together on the other side of the medicine process, feeling grounded, having enough internal stability to process the medicine experience. Suicidal ideation is not the right time to be taking it. Again, there are a few steps that you need to take before it's time to go into a medicine ceremony. Definitely work with a professional to help you make those type of decisions. If you're not able to ground, if you're having trouble with reality, and if you've had any psychosis in the past year, then it may not be the right pathway for you, and it may not be the right time. But again, come back to healthcare professionals who can really help you and support you to make those kinds of decisions. Essentially, the best way to take medicines is when you have, a relatively good amount of internal stability, If you get emotional, you can bring yourself back in. You feel relatively grounded. You're not at risk for suicide. You really have a good idea of, this is the medicine I'm going to take. This is why I want to take it. So it's not a jarring experience. You can integrate it when you come back on the other side. And then the best thing you can do, if you're still not sure at the end of all of that, is this the right medicine for me and is this the right time, is to just wait, listen to your body's wisdom, and maybe experiment with some other healing modalities first. Microdosing, there is a lot of fantastic research around that these days. Maybe that is the first step for you. Breath work, intermittent fasting, a lot of great things that you can try to help you on your journey. Now what I will do is pass it back over to Aditi, and she's going to walk you through how you can choose the right medicine and how you can find a really supportive guide.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. Appreciate it. So let's talk about choosing the right guide. So with choosing the right guide, there are multiple ways to look at it. So there could be a guide who's helping you prepare for the medicine journey and also help you afterwards. And there could also be someone who is sitting with you when you're actually taking the medicine. It's also called a sitter. You may have heard that term before. Essentially, somebody is sitting with you as you are taking the medicine to just guide you through the process. Now, typically, when you're choosing this person, you want to make sure that this person knows what they're doing and they know what they're talking about. Not just someone who says that they know what they're talking about, because in these states, when you are taking the medicine, you're in a vulnerable state. So you want to make sure you're doing it with someone or with the support of someone that you trust, that you feel safe with, that you feel okay being vulnerable with, being in that vulnerable state. Someone who is trained in this work. There's a lot of people, in the street world who may claim that they know what they're talking about. They know all the things about all the different medicines. And they may, but they also may not. So you want to make sure you're doing your research, you're talking to the right people, surrounding yourself with the right people, because it can go in directions that would potentially be harmful. So you want to make sure you are with a trained professional who knows what they're talking about, who has done this before. It's not their first time or even their third time, but they've done this many, many times before you decide to choose them to work with. So trust them, experienced, they are trained, and most importantly, they are a professional. So now let's talk about the types of medicines, my favorite part. So let's talk about a few of the different medicines that are out there. So there's psilocybin, which is essentially, it's natural, it's derived from over 200 species of mushrooms. These last, typically, the psychedelic effect lasts about 6 to 12 hours. So it's a bit on the longer end. And people use this for all sorts of things, but definitely for healing, for divine connection, definitely helps with depression, anxiety, headaches, PTSD, all that good stuff. And then next is ayahuasca. So ayahuasca is considered the mother of the psychedelics. And this is natural as well, made with plants, brewed into kind of like a stew or a drink that you would have. This you want to do potentially when you have some deeper work that you want to do, that you want to process. You want answers definitely for a spiritual and a physical healing. And like I had mentioned, I have the necklace here for you. So you can actually see what the ayahuasca bark looks like. So this is from an actual ayahuasca tree, and they actually use the medicine inside of this to make the psychedelic drink. So this is actually a necklace I had gotten when I did my first ayahuasca experience, and just wanted to be able to show that to you guys. And next is ketamine. So ketamine is much, much shorter and much lighter. It's only 60 minutes, whereas all the other ones I'm talking about today are like 4 hours plus. So what I like about ketamine is it's short, it's light, it comes and goes, it kind of helps you with what you need to, and then you can kind of go on with your day. The day after, the day of, you rest, but you're not like in this psychedelic space the whole time. It's really, you feel pretty fine after an hour's time. I find that ketamine helps a lot with day-to-day anxiety and depression. also really helps with reducing suicide ideation, helps with PTSD, and lots more things. And for LSD, so that's another one. This is a long one as well. So this can have a 12-hour duration. So this is one of the really, really long ones. This is semi-synthetic. So I actually didn't realize this until recently, because people always talk about LSD as being a synthetic medicine, but actually I realized it's derived from a fungus, though it's in a lab. So it's actually considered semi-synthetic, which I thought was really fascinating. So those are just an example of a few of the different medicines that are out there. And I'm going to pass it over to Shanan to tell you about Buffo, which is another medicine.
Awesome. I'm just going to share my screen for this one because I have a really good visual to describe what a Buffo experience is like. So Buffo, if anybody is familiar with it, it's derived from an animal, from a Sonoran desert toad. It's milked from the glands of the toad. The glands of the toad are milked. The milk is turned into crystals. Crystals are then smoked. It's a really, really short trip. 15, 20 minutes, can go just a little bit longer if you're taking, multiple inhales of the smoke. But it's the most powerful of all the psychedelics. So don't be fooled by the short duration. This is known as the God molecule, and for good reason, because like our friend here, you start off as just a happy chocolate gorilla minding your own business. You inhale the Buffo and immediately you are turned into chocolate soup. So with most psychedelics, the way that people described it, and I would agree with this from my personal experience, when you go into a very profound mystical experience with ayahuasca, with psilocybin, mushrooms, you can feel like a pair of invisible eyes watching this mystical experience unfold. When you take Buffo, there are no eyes. There are no eyes to watch, and there is no I as in the I for the self. You are one with cosmic consciousness. There is no separation between you or anything else. It's really profound spiritual experience. You can get a lot of healing and catharsis in these journeys, but because it's so short, it's really hard to retain information. So if you're just something to be mindful of, if you are curious about Buffo, if that's something you wanted to explore, I would really lean into your integration, all of your preparation beforehand, knowing your whys, knowing your goals, spending a lot of time journaling, self-reflection, because it's going to help you, capture as much meaning as possible from that really, really short, intense window with the medicine. Also, if you can, just a note on conservation. So because of the surge of interest in this medicine at the moment, the toads are actually, they're not endangered yet, but they are being overused. You can produce Buffo, so the molecule for it is DMT-5-MeO. I don't know why it's called DMT, because it has nothing to do with the same chemical that's in ayahuasca. It's completely different. But you can get a synthetic version of that made, and it's no different to having it from the toad, except that you're helping protect this animal from, being overused. And there are some medicines like peyote, for example, that have become endangered because of overuse. So just another thing to be mindful of when you're exploring psychedelic medicines. But on that note, we can move into the next part of today. Let me just stop the share. What I wanted to talk about. So let's say you've found your medicine, you know your why, you've got your goals, it's the right time, the ceremony has appeared and you want to go into it. The next thing to think about is preparation, and within that umbrella of preparation, I think there are three main points to look at. How much time do you actually need to prepare for a journey? How do you get ready? And then how do you integrate the experience when you come out of it on the other side? So to answer the first question, my preference is 4 weeks at a minimum, if it's viable. to prepare for a journey, particularly if it's your first time or if you're going in to work on, trauma, PTSD, addiction, some of these, more complex issues. The more time you can give yourself to prepare, the better. Also, I would say, some of these medicines are pretty powerful and pretty physical. Ayahuasca, for example, is a very physical somatic experience. You might purge, you might cry, really, really wonderful. But it can be challenging, it can be jarring. So if you're giving yourself that space beforehand to, get into your body, get acquainted, learn some breathwork techniques, it's just going to make your life so much easier when you're in the journey. And then, as I kind of touched on before as well, if you're taking Buffo, for example, then you definitely want to have as much time to prepare beforehand, so you can capture a lot of meaning from the experience. And then in terms of actually getting ready for the journey, so we want to come back to this principle of taking small, consistent actions that make transformation sustainable. What is my goal taking this medicine? What changes do I want to call in that the medicine is going to cement for me? Exercise, diet, meditation, journaling, working with a coach, working with a therapist. A lot of my clients, actually, if they're already seeing a therapist, they'll invite their therapist into the process. They'll say, I'm thinking about taking this medicine, and then their therapist will work with them to, uncover what is the priority for you at this moment, what is your intention, what would you like to take into the medicine experience, which can be really helpful. The best tool, I think, in my humble opinion, for preparing for a journey is breath work. If you can work with your breath before a ceremony, your life is going to be so much easier during the medicine process. One, because breath work helps you regulate your nervous system. So you're already practicing coming back to center, being grounded, that, creating that core of stability. And then when you're in the medicine journey itself, it helps you to surrender. And that's the main goal in the medicine. So if you're somebody in particular who really struggles with letting go of control, and even if you're not, I think that's something that we've all had to work through at some point in our lives, is this idea of control. When you're in the medicine, if something challenging is coming up for you, if the medicine is inviting you to, lift up and go on this journey, but you're kind of resisting a little bit, having that skill, that foundation of being able to trust your breath and come back and inhale to receive and exhale to let go, it's just going to really help you drop in and surrender when you're in that medicine process. So highly recommend leaning into that as much as possible. Once you have got those things getting a little bit closer, you want to set your intention. So setting an intention, for want of a better word, is just about being intentional. It's coming back again to this idea of empowering yourself by participating in your journey. A lot of people that I work with, and I can say from my own experience, I've been there before, sometimes in life it can feel like things are just happening to us, that we don't have a lot of agency. When you set your intention, you're becoming a co-creator with the medicine. It's not just an experience that's happening to you. So it's returning to that self, returning to that creativity with life. It also helps to provide some context for the experience when you come out on the other side, which can help you find some meaning. A few examples of what an intention can look like, some things that clients of mine have worked with in medicine journeys are, I invite joy, creativity, and love into my life. How can I let go of my grief and still remain connected to love? I am ready to love and forgive myself. How can I let go of the past and find my purpose? Really simple questions that can give you really big, meaningful answers. Or calls to action as well, saying that, declaring something that you were ready for, that you'd like the medicine to help you with. The next thing that you want to do is prepare your aftercare plan. So it's not just what happens before, it's not just what happens in the medicine, what's going to happen afterwards. Who is going to be your support network? Who are you going to talk to about this? Particularly if you're going in for addiction, for trauma, for sexual abuse, some of those big complex things. Do you need to speak to a therapist? Do you need to find a new one? What does your friends and family network look like? Psychedelics are not for everybody, and that's okay. That's really fine. And we want to be really honest about that and respect and love our family and friends who's to talk to these people instead who can practice non-judgment when I share my journey and my experiences with the medicine. You want to think about really practical things as well. Who's going to pick me up on the other side of the journey? And then how much time am I going to take off work, to enjoy this experience? Because I've seen people go into a ceremony, think that they're going to go into a ceremony on Saturday with ayahuasca and then go back to an 80-hour work week on Monday. And I've not yet seen that work out well for anybody. So I definitely recommend practicing kindness, compassion by giving yourself time, on the other side, to even just enjoy the beautiful afterglow. Let the lessons marinate, let it all sink in, give yourself that space, for a little while, or to release anything that's coming up for you on the other side. In the week before the medicine, you want to avoid sex, alcohol, substances, fried food, and meat. Sex is one I get a lot of questions about. Why do I have to abstain from that before the medicine? What does it actually do? I've spoken to a few different facilitators and shamans who say that if you engage in sex in the week before or a few days before, you carry the energy of the person you were intimate with into the ceremony. So you're not just working on yourself energetically, you're also working on them. So if you just have that period of abstinence, you're just working on your own energy. It's just so you can keep that experience for yourself. You want to, in that week before the medicine as well, just spend time with your community, with the people who make you feel good, rest, reflect, get into your body, do your breath work, your breathing. If you can, the best thing on the day of a treatment, depending on what medicine, the time for fasting will vary, but generally an 8-hour fast before taking medicine is really wonderful. Just drinking some water, definitely avoiding fried food and avoiding meats, because it can make you purge, more likely to purge in a ceremony. The next thing to think about is the other side of the medicine is the integration. And integration, I'm going to bring up my slide for this. So excuse me for just 1 minute. The other side of the ceremony, this is actually where the real work begins, is what happens when you come back from the medicine. So 1 moment. So integration is the process of bringing all the pieces of your journey together, your intention, your motivation, the insights and experiences you had while you were on the medicine, where you are in your life, and bringing them all together, sewing them all up to make positive changes. It's about embodying the messages that come through in the medicine, which is really how you pay respect to yourself and to the plants that you are working with. So an example of what the process of integration can look like, a message that often comes up with my clients is self-love, regardless of what medicine they're taking. I see it consistently appear for people. Everything is okay, and you need to love yourself more. And that's a really powerful and beautiful message. And in the afterglow, it can feel really easy, like, yeah, of course I can love myself. But your job, the process of integration, is to look at, okay, I've been told by the medicine I'm not loving myself enough. What does self-love mean for me? For example, what are my relationships like? Is loving myself setting boundaries, or reinforcing boundaries that have started to slip? Doesn't mean that I need to cultivate an inner coach to push back on my inner critic. Doesn't mean looking at the differences between self-care wonderful woman who came, and the medicine had brought this up for her, this self-love theme, and we were all discussing it. And she said she thought she had really good self-care practices, but what the medicine revealed to her is that she was actually self-soothing. So the example she gave is that she would come home after a long day of work and be really tired. And so she would give herself permission without guilt to not cook and just, order something to eat online. Beautiful, really, really lovely way of caring for yourself. Except that when she would order food, she would invariably get pizza. And she came to realize, because of the medicine, that was self-soothing. That was about instant gratification, just eating something delicious and cheesy and satisfying in that moment that's going to help her numb out and just kind of forget for a while. But it wasn't self-care, because it didn't honor and respect her health goals. That was something that was really important to her, was making healthy lifestyle choices. And every time she chose to eat pizza, she wasn't actually honoring herself. So what she came to see is that self-care is, yes, absolutely. I don't have to cook. I can order something out if I want to, and I don't have to feel guilty. And I'm going to choose something healthy. That's how I'm integrating self-care into my life. That's how I'm being loving and compassionate to myself, by honoring, what is really important to me in these moments. The integration process, really, it's about looking at, how do we become our own friends? How do we become our own ally, basically? There are multiple ways that you can do that universally: meditation, exercise, journaling, acupuncture, massage therapy, breath work, getting into the somatics of it. But really, it's a very personal process that's going to be unique to everyone's experience. So basically, to sum up, if you are looking to work with plant medicines, what you really want to do is some homework. Understand what medicine you're going to take and how it works. So the experience is not jarring, it's not confronting. You're setting yourself up really well to win. Know why you're taking this medicine and how you want it to help you. What do you want to get from this? What is your motivation? And then start taking that consistent action, calling in those habits already that the medicine will cement. And then once you finish the process, once you've had the medicine, then your job is to start embodying those insights and, learning how to make those long-lasting transformations. I'm going to pass it back to Aditi now. So thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Super informative. Thank you so much, Shannon. One thing I really love about psychedelic medicine is it really cuts through the layers of like whatever's happening or whatever's inside of you. I have had many clients who have had years of therapy on working on a certain issue, talking about it, going to therapy, doing all the things, trying the medicines, etc., like the typical antidepressant medicines, and not really finding themselves going too far with it. But then when they have an experience with a psychedelic medicine, they find that, wow, like they were able to just go deep and just cut through all of that to really the root underlying maybe cause or problem or situation from where it was born from. For example, if there was something in your childhood that is sitting in your system, but you didn't realize it. For example, I had a client who was struggling with a situation in her current life with someone in her current life. But then when she had some experience with the medicine actually showed her this situation was actually not the problem. There was actually something much deeper from many years ago. And once she was able to kind of work through that, there was an opening, there was a freedom, there was a healing and a release that allowed her to have more space to truly be who she is and show up authentically and be able to have the relationships and results that she wanted. As an example, I've also had a lot of clients come when they're experiencing grief, having lost a loved one, either by passing away or by actual relationships ending, for example, a heartbreak or just being out of contact, whatever that might look like. And I remember I had one client who just felt really stuck in the past. And he was like, Aditi, I just want to stop ruminating and obsessing about this past situation in my life, one of his past relationships. And I want to be really present in this relationship, but I can't because my mind is just so settled over here. But I've tried all the things, literally having done maybe 1 or 2 psychedelic medicine treatments. And he was like, Aditi, it's not even in my mind. I don't even think about it. So it's really, really fascinating. I agree with Shannon that this is a very personal experience. So really going into it without having expectations can be really powerful to just open yourself up to whatever experience you're meant to have. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can experience psychedelic medicine. I know that that is one thing that has been coming up a lot for people, so I'm going to talk about it now. So where and how can I experience psychedelics? So I do want to give a disclaimer and say that many of these medicines are illegal in the US. So you may not be able to have access to it, or if you were, you know, you want to just be very careful where you're accessing it from, who your connection is, what that might be. But most importantly, one of the most safe and legal ways to do it is with the companies that prescribe medicine. So the legal approved medicine right now across the US is ketamine. So that one is a lot more readily available. They used to do, well, they still have in-person clinics, but now they have a lot of at-home treatments that are starting to pop up where you can actually meet with a prescriber on sorry about that. How do I X that out? Anyways, I lost my train of thought. Oh, so you would meet with a prescriber on Zoom. So like through a Zoom video call, and you will actually, once you're approved for the treatment, you would get prescribed the medicine and it would actually get mailed to your home. So you would get to do an at-home treatment, which has really made this medicine more accessible to so many people, which is really exciting. So that's one way. Many companies that exist and are starting to pop up more and more that serve different states. So you'll want to just look up that online. And then there's trusted healers and shamans that are around the world that are trained with this medicine and their lineage and their roots and their villages. So that's another way you can find and experience it. There's also centers for healing and research facilities. So there's lots of clinical trials happening in different centers and different universities where there's research being conducted. And I know that sometimes they're looking for people for different studies. So if you were interested in that, that would be another way that you could get to experience that. And then another way, the last one is retreats. So there's lots of retreats. I don't know if there's lots, but there's a handful of retreats out there where you would be able to experience the medicine in a safe, trusted container with a group of people. I've been to a few experiences where I've been able to do the medicine in an outdoor kind of jungle location, which can be a really transformative experience. So retreats are another way that you can do that as well. And speaking of retreats, I'm really excited to announce.
Aditi, can I just interject really quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Before you get to that, I just wanted to say one thing as well. So we're going to email everybody after this with a little guide, just some touch points from today for your reference. And one of those points that we'll be looking at, that will be emailed to you as well, are red flags for facilitators.
Yes.
Because psychedelic tourism is a real thing these days. And so it's just a guide to help you, identify a really safe and trustworthy person to work with, so you can make good choices there. But yeah, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, great stuff. Thank you so much. Perfect. So, like I mentioned, speaking of retreats, I'm really excited to announce that Shanan and I will be leading our retreat this fall. So it's going to be a 5-day retreat called Restore. And the idea is really restoring your heart, being able to nurture your mind, your body, and your soul. It's going to happen over 5 days, and you'll have an opportunity to experience plant medicine. It's going to be a glamping experience. You can see this is actually the location that we're going to be at and it's going to be located in Tulum, Mexico. So it's going to be a glamping experience, and there's air conditioning, so it's a little bit of a nice kind of glamping experience. And we've both physically been there, and it's really, really nice, and it gives you that kind of jungle, earthy experience with it as you're kind of going through the work. So it's happening in November 10th through the 15th. There's going to be integration workshops. So some of the stuff that Shanan talked about today on being able to prepare beforehand, being able to integrate afterhand. And we're going to be doing classes, workshops. You're going to have access to a ceremony, connecting with different people. And this 5-day retreat includes accommodations, transportation, more than 5 meals, and lots more things. So if you're interested in just talking about it, learning more about this, we have a link where you can submit your information, and we can get on a call to talk more about it if you're feeling called to this. And now I'm going to move into Q&A. So if you have any questions in general about psychedelics, if you have questions about the retreat, anything at all that's coming up for you, I want to go ahead and open the floor. And I'm actually going to go ahead and stop the recording too. So